for being here. The first thing on the agenda is I want to show you guys like the lay of the land. So we're gonna start with the live room, control room, cable closet, machine room. So like, obviously like the goal I kind of explained to people, but we were walking in. Like I've been working here for a while and I've gathered a lot of stuff over the years, and it's like you don't go into a studio like in day one just like know where everything is. So I kind of wanted to just fast track all of that sort of information, and it's gonna be like probably the first workshop. I think I'm gonna do more because it's like a lot to cover, but I'm gonna do like sort of like as a quick of an overview of everything as I can, and then we'll do like more in-depth Q&A after, and you guys can hang out. We're gonna be here probably late. I don't know how late, but yeah, the first thing is like obviously this is the control room. This is like the Matrix hub where everything happens and everything's connected to. You got like the outboard gear here, the SSL, the patch bay, which connects to like everything in the studio. And then now we're gonna head into the live floor, and I'll show you guys where the recording happens, like where the instruments go. Come on in.
Hi there.
Are you here for the workshop? What's going on, man?
What's up, bro? Colin? Charlie.
Oh, what's up?
Sorry.
Charlie, your friend's here.
Yeah. Oh, is that Daniel? Yeah. Pardon me. Fine.
Okay.
Thanks for coming. How you doing? Welcome to work, bro. You want the
So, this is the live room. I'll wait for people to kind of pour in here.
in the control room over here?
While you guys pour in, I'm going to get a flashlight because I'm going to need that. Take a look.
Say hi.
Hey.
Don't act like you didn't rip a nasty stove.
This will be my my pointer stick.
3 a.m. That's good.
So, basically, typically, like, this is where you put the drum kit because you have, like, the extended ceiling. This is, like, if you want, like, a rocky, boomy sound, typically this is the spot. It's also, like, a nice spot because the drummer's, like, the center of the band, and, like, everybody can stand around him. Like, you can have a vocal booth in that corner, a guitar set up there, bassist there, maybe keyboards there. But we also have a piano room where we would put like amps and stuff to get isolation, and this whole thing comes off. So when you don't want the isolation, you can keep this open, and it just pushes over to this corner here. Sarah, you want to help me with that? And then we have the grand piano. This side of, or like this tiny room is like a great place for more modern drums because it's like a tighter sound. So if you listen to like Fleetwood Mac and like wonder how they get like those really tight, kind of almost like sound like electronic sounding drums out of a real kit, like probably want to do it in here. This is my favorite place to record like drums just because I do mostly modern stuff now. And so a typical like layout, like I explained, would be like drums, maybe bassist, maybe keys. We'll take these like two baffles, these things right here. We'll stick them in the corner here. We'll have like the singer here with like one mic that's like a super directional, like a Beta 58 or something to like reduce the bleed, and that'll be called like the scratch vocal. And then we'll also have like a large diaphragm condenser beside it so that when the band's done, he can just quickly or she can quickly hop in here and like do the actual vocals. But like typically when you're recording like a bed track, you want to have as much togetherness as you can from the beginning because like it'll really lock in the groove. And like if you can't do anything like that, like at least bass and drums and then overdub guitars, overdub vocals. But there's so many ways to do it. Like a lot of my records, I had started on acoustic guitar and like did like what's called like a ghost track with acoustic and vocal, and we'll like produce out the song, maybe even have like electronic drums and then like bring in a drummer last. So you can do that too. It's just like with that you're kind of more locked to like a tempo, and it's like the drummer really has to be in groove with everybody else rather than like dictating what the groove is. And what was I going to say? Also, we'll get to like sort of like tempo mapping and stuff because like when you have a lot of people sort of like grooving and stuff together, it's very different than having like a song that's like at 120 BPM where it's like you're just programming things and it's like super easy. Like I'll typically be like here with the band while they're like just practicing the song. If I'm not engineering, and the engineer, I'll like say like stop when I feel like it gets off the click because I'll be like, okay, here they're going naturally up 40 BPM here, like program that in, and then we'll go again until we kind of get the whole song done, tempo mapped, and then we have like we know like we got 2 bars at the start, and then the verse goes here, the chorus goes here, and all the tempo changes are already mapped up, so like everybody has the click in their ears. these robots, we'll talk more about them later. Like this allows you to have like different mixes for everybody. So like you'll see that they're labeled like drums, bass, electric, acoustic, vocals, and then talkback. Sometimes on the talkback channel, I'll like put my talkback to the band, but also like all the rest of the programmed instruments, like the demo sort of session stuff, so that they have like a quick volume control for all of that. But then they also have like individual volumes for themselves. Like drummer might not need to hear himself as much; he might want to hear the bass more and the vocals more. Typically, like the band, if they're in this room, they'll just turn the drum thing right off because like they hear it even through the headphones. It's so loud. This is the headphone, or not the headphones. Actually, yes, the headphones, but also the mic closet. So like we have like a great assortment of like just classic mics that you use on everything, like everything from like dynamic mics, large diaphragm condensers, ribbon mics, like super directional dynamic mics, shotgun mics for like more like ADR or like post-production stuff, film and TV voiceover sort of things. What kind of mics am I missing? I'm already out of breath.
Well, we don't have mid-side mics, but we have the capability of replicating.
Right, yeah, we don't have mid-side mics. So yeah, here's where you'd find like your mics and your headphones to hook up to the rest of the stuff. So that's sort of like the overview of this room. You'll see there's like studio amps. Like we don't have a bass amp. We got rid of that thing. Typically, it would be nice to have a bass amp, but a lot of the times nowadays, just DI, and especially like if you're trying to record like a band and a guitar and a bass, you can point the bass amp towards one corner of the isolation booth and the guitar amp towards the other, and sort of get separation down like that. What we've been doing is also putting a guitar amp like in the hallway and like having isolation like that. We used to have like this room up here, but now it's offices, where we would have like another ISO booth. So when you're doing a lot of stuff like together, isolation is key. That's why we kind of like try to separate people out. Like if you're recording a saxophonist with a band, you definitely don't want him in the same room as the drummer. Like you'll put him in the booth because that sax is gonna like bleed into every mic. And even with that wall there, like it's not perfect, but like it's good enough to the point that it's like if you need to do overdubs and mute the live track, you can do overdubs. Music stands, key. Like always have a music stand for everybody. Like it's like first thing I was taught is like doesn't matter if you know how to use any of this stuff. Like your job firstly is to like make people comfortable. So like have a pencil, have a pen, make sure that their lyrics are printed out. Like just go above and beyond to like make people feel comfortable and like ready to just come and perform and give you the best take of their lives and make you cry. So back here, this is where the power amps are for the mains, the midfields, and the small oratones. And this is where also the Lexicon reverb effect system lives in there. So like that's important to know if you ever need to like reset something. It's a little complicated. Don't fuck around with it unless you really know what to do, but that's where that lives. We got some guitars back here. Here's like our cable closet. Very important place to know. If you need a cable, like you want to be able to go grab a cable in 2 seconds, hook it up to where it needs to go, and then run back and record. In here, we have the machine room. So this is, you guys can come a little bit closer. So this is where we'll do like repairs. We obviously have like a workbench. We keep like the more valuable things in here, like expensive mics. We don't let just anybody record on any mic. Just because like you're a singer doesn't mean that you really need to sing on a $40,000 mic. Unless you're really good, then we'll let you. These are the 192, so like Pro Tools goes off of this. This is like the interface, and each of these has 8 ins and outs. So altogether, you get, what's 16 times 2? 40, 32? Yeah, so you get 32 ins and outs of Pro Tools like that. This is the SSL computer. So back in the day before Pro Tools, like you'd have to like program your desk to like do all your like fader moves and recall everything, like every EQ and every dynamic. But this thing has just been shut off for years. It's just like so much money to maintain an SSL, and because it doesn't get used that often, it breaks more often. I still like using it, so we have like a set number of working channels, but you don't really need the computer anymore because all your automation stuff is done in Pro Tools. We also have the Lexicon, sorry, not the Lexicon, the EMT 250 here. It's a great reverb unit that's already patched in to the patch bay. So if you wanted to like send stuff through that reverb, you'd have to do your settings here and then run back and record it there. But that's pretty much this room. There's like the please test bin. Like obviously if something doesn't work, don't just put it back to where it was. It's the worst when you're like in the middle of the session, you grab a cable and it doesn't work. If something doesn't work, toss it in the please test bin. That's important. Also, there's the beer fridge for the staff. That's all. And here we have like this sort of like other tables.
You guys want to squeeze it over?
So here you'll find all sorts of different cables and stuff. So you'll have like adapters, like things like Phantom, which is like the patch base small sort of cables, to XLR or to TRS or TS, all the guitar pedals, the DI boxes, a bin of like extension cords, power bars, and these things, which are called the Euro cables. I don't know why they're called that. I think it's because it's like a European standard sort of thing, but it's just a power cable you'll find on like every computer or most pieces of gear. Speaker cables and like that. So if you need like some sort of nuanced cable, it's here. Also a bin of like sort of like things that need to be fixed, like bike stands and stuff. And then the lost and found. And then back there we have like a storage closet. And then in the back there's another room that has like all the internet servers and stuff like that. So that's sort of like the overview of
Quick before we leave this room, we should
Yep.
also show them
Oh yeah.
the 140 that we have back here. This is like an actual physical plate reverb box,
Yeah,
the
you guys
EMT
don't see
140.
it.
I have a plate.
Yes,
That's a whole plate reverb there.
Oh, yes.
It's what, like 12 feet by 4 feet or something like that. So where the sound is actually being sent into this box, reverberating on the physical plate that we have in here, and then being sent back into the system.
Yeah.
So you get this crazy natural reverb. I honestly have yet to use this thing because we do have some pretty great ones in there, like the Lexicon, the H3500,
Yeah.
and Valhalla can never do you wrong. But maybe we should test this later.
Yeah, we
Give it
can.
a run. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah,
Cool.
that's
Well,
all.
but anyways, a fun thing to see. This is how physical reverb built in the studio was actually started in the physical boxes. Now,
This little area is also where we store the drum kit when it's not being used. It's always nice to like walk into a studio.
There's like 251.
yeah,
I've been using that.
Doing a vocal session. So like, can I try something on the drums? It's already there. It might not be mic'd up, but you know, it's not that hard to get a good drum sound out of like a couple mics.
That's so sick.
The last thing this is
No,
what I
it's
wanted
like
to show you.
I do like that one thing with the Reba dogs.
So you're probably wondering how do we actually get mics from here into there, and that's where these panel points on the wall there. So you'll see there's A, B, C, D, and then actually A to H, and then 1 to 8, and then there's 9 to 16, and then in the piano room there is 17 to 28. So you could actually have like 28, actually more. You could have like 32 mics going all at the same time in this room, all patched into the matrix in there. And then on the walls here, when you're not using the robots, we have just like a regular stereo cue. So if you're just doing like a single vocal record, you'll take Q1, which is these guys right here, patch it into one of those like little headphone boxes, and you got your headphones. I'll go more in depth with that. We'll actually record some stuff and bang on some drums maybe. Percussion bin, very important. And then, also there is a couple of guitar cables here. So like, let's say you have a guitarist in the control room tracking. He can be in the control room sending a guitar patch cable to the amp in here and then put the amp in there. So he can be like with the engineer or producer working on his stuff in there while his guitar's in here. Alternatively, you can also, there's speaker connections. So you can have like the head of an amp in the control room, the guitarist in the control room, and the actual cabinet of the amp in there. So you could be dialing in the head of your amp, playing guitar in there while the recording is actually happening in here. So that's that. Am I going too fast?
No.
Okay. So back here. this is like I said, the control room, and now we're gonna get into like what actually happens here. So let's move. Okay, we're right on time. So let's move into like a vocal record. So to set up a vocal, basically it actually starts out there. So let's go back out there. Sorry, I'm making you guys walk. You're gonna have some calories burnt after this. So first things first is like pretend like you're the singer and set up the booth. Like headphones, I want to sit on this. I don't want my headphones on this, so I'll put this back here. Make sure that the cable's not tangled. Put it on the mic stand. There's fresh pencils there. There's a little table for drinks and stuff. This is out of the way. Mic is set up. Right now we have the U87, which is like very classic choice for vocals, and that is running from the mic to number 9 in there, and then the headphones are coming out of Q1 to this box here. So that's basically the setup in here. I'll stop briefly for questions before we go in there, and I'll show you how to actually patch into Pro Tools. Everybody following? No questions, no wrong answers, no wrong questions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Did you say you have ribbon mics?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Definitely have ribbon mics. We have the Coles, the classic like overhead and like trombone or like trumpet mic. I know trombones. Trombone is and then headphones in there, but we're already pretty much set up. So let's go in there and actually patch in a vocal mic.
Liz, if you're curious about ribbon mics too, we have a really great, it's a stereo pair Boye ribbon mic. So if you're familiar with the 121,
Yeah.
essentially it's two 121s stacked on top of each other in one capsule that split into a stereo signal.
It's like the new UAD microphone. It's stereo.
Yeah, kind of. This is like a little bit more old school, but it sounds
okay.
fantastic. You can't get rid of it.
Probably better if I actually like show that later. So I'll come back. Let me come back to that.
Okay.
So, what's the main difference between condensers and dynamic mics? Who knows?
Yeah.
Phantom power, yeah. Beside all like the internal stuff and how they work, phantom power. So basically, if you guys actually want to come closer, like here, it'll be helpful to actually explain this. I'm gonna go through the patch base slowly, and then I'll have a more in-depth thing. But this is typically the most daunting place because there's so many things you could do.
Is it all labeled correctly?
It's labeled correctly, but it's labeled in the old school SSL tape sort of like days, so like some of it doesn't quite make sense, but I'll explain it. So your mic lines are all those like panel points that I was talking about there. So we were in 9, so I'll take a patch point there. And then the first thing I'll do is hook up the mic to a preamp. So my like go-to for vocals is the 1079s. They're like very similar to 1073s, the vintage Neves. Those are like the top left on the producer desk layout there. And then out of that, you'll typically go into a compressor if you're recording anything. So my go-to is the CL1B. All of these like 2 rows right here is basically all the producer desk stuff. So it starts on the left side here with the 1079s, and then it goes down, and then it goes to the next box from the top down. So that's basically how it's sequentially laid out here. So we have the 1079s, and then on the second one we have the CL1B. So I'll go into the left side of that. It's actually a CL2A. It's like the stereo version. So I'll take the input, which is, it's always in bottom, out top when it comes to those things. So we'll take the input of that, and then we take the output of that, and then we'll go into Pro Tools 1. Pro Tools in is like, I labeled that because it's actually multi-track send / group monitor inputs. Again, that's like a tape SSL thing. You wouldn't know what that means if you're just using Pro Tools, so I just put PT in. And then right below the PT in, there is the Pro Tools outs. We'll get into that more when we talk about like hybrid mixing and stuff. So right now we're pretty much set up with the vocal. We'll go down here. We have the output level, phantom power. It's a good rule of thumb to like always reset your gear so that the next person that walks in doesn't have like a bunch of EQs he has to reset. So then we'll set the level. I usually start around 40 dBs of gain and off on the EQ. I leave the EQ switch on though because I'll usually like roll off around 45. And then in the compressor, pretty much set like a small ratio. I'll put the threshold to 0 to start, put the output to 0 as well, and then like medium and medium attack and release. Of course, like you can go slow attack, fast attack, depending on the performance. Do you guys know when you do like a slow attack versus a long attack on like things or like
vocals versus longer vocals?
Yeah.
More like belting versus
Yeah.
punch.
exactly?
Yeah.
And then when you're doing the threshold, like some people are like, I don't want it to go past 1 dBs of reduction, and some people just close their eyes and listen. That's more so my style. Like I don't care if I'm slamming it. If it sounds good, it sounds good. So that's in. Phantom Power's on. And now in Pro Tools, we should see. Let me make a new session here. So we should see, basically, if we make a new track, call it main U87, or if we're recording a vocalist, like we might say like ant U87, going into 1. And there we go. So now, let's see, if we did this all right. Basically, keep your monitor like sort of like mid to low when you're testing things, and you should see signal. Hold on.
You want me to go in there?
Just give me 1 sec. CLA 9. Oh, I just saw something. Yeah. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll just crank the monitors and see if I'm hearing things. So you can kind of hear it. It's a little bit low, so you can hear your clap like from the other room. And if do you want to go in there and say hello?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Is this studio only Pro Tools capable? Like, can you, like, let's say with that patching cable?
It's actually, you can use Ableton.
Yeah,
With
okay.
Ableton, you just have to turn off the second, third, and fourth I/O.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't like multiple things.
Hello.
Sorry.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can, only in the left channel.
Only in the left? Might just be a bad patch.
That's what I'm thinking.
Oh, so there's Charlie's voice there.
I can hear you, but I can't hear myself.
Hold on. Okay, so let me explain this. So, there you go, Charlie.
Yeah. Oh, hello.
You can hear yourself now?
No. Or it's really quiet? Yeah, it's just really quiet.
Yeah, you're just coming in really low. 1 sec.
Okay, no problem.
So I'm just going to make sure that... So your hardware buffer should be like below 128 when you're recording, because you don't want any of that latency. And... let me see. I'm going to... Comp meters, compression.
Do. Oh, I can hear myself a little better. Do.
Want to check if there's like a -10 pad on the mic?
Nope.
Is the mic backwards?
No, Mike's okay. It's a little short, but yeah, it's on. Maybe we just got a crap cable or something.
You should be coming in a lot hotter, but anyways, that's like a troubleshooting thing. You'll run into issues like that. I'm not going to spend time troubleshooting this right now. But, okay, Charlie, do you want to come back in?
Okay.
You might also just be talking quiet. So yeah, that's the typical thing. So what I did here, your external to monitors is like, this is called the center section. So you can monitor different things like the iPod cable under the desk, or the Mac output, or Pro Tools 1 and 2. And external to monitors is me, like these guys. And I can change which speakers I'm listening to right here. So I can have my dim, my cut, and then my mini, which is my NS10s, which is this mini left-right thing. And then the mains, if you just turn that off, you'll hear it on the mains. And then the way the cues work is if you go external to studios, that sends whatever you've selected here to that cue output that I showed you guys on the panel there. And then you have the headphone volume here, and then your talkback level here, which is like that mic. And if you hit the cues button, you can talk to them. There's also like a little button in the studio right here. So if somebody else wants to talk. This isn't a microphone, it's just a button.
Everybody holds it up to their mouth.
It's funny. Everybody thinks this is a microphone. I'm like, it's not a microphone. But yeah, so that'll make sure that they can hear you as well. So let me see what am I missing here? Oh yeah, monitoring out the box. So let's say your singer is really particular in how they want to hear things, and you're like dealing with somebody that wants to hear their voice way louder than you, or they don't want to hear themselves at all. All your faders on Pro Tools are going to control your mix, but if I want to build them a separate mix, first of all, I will make a new master fader, call it headphones, and then set the master fader to 3/4. So now this controls the output of 3/4, and when you do it the way I'm about to explain, it's really hot, so you got to make sure the master fader is down like to about -20. And then in Pro Tools, you'll go out of 3/4. And so now I can set this pre-fader or post-fader depending on what the circumstance is. But if I set it to post-fader, if I turn this down, like they won't hear themselves anymore. But I still have, like I can mix the song how I want it, and they're like, I still want more vocal, you can bump that up. And for them to actually hear that, you turn external to studio off. And now, to get the cues working, you take your cue sends left and right here. So that's going into the cues. And I went out of 3/4 in Pro Tools. So the multi-track returns as the outs of Pro Tools. So that's going now out of Pro Tools 3/4 into the cue sends. And then my talkback will be a separate channel. It's going to be the top one here, like the first on this yellow bar.
There's only if they're particular, right?
What's that?
It's only if they're particular?
Yeah, like typically with a vocal record, like it's fine for them to just hear the mix the way you're hearing, and then you can always like bump up the record track if they want to hear more or whatever. And then I'll go into 24 for the talkback. And then for the talkback, I'll make another aux input that's mono, and I'll call that TB. And the input of that will be, I'm set up for Ableton, so I don't have all 24 right now, so I'll put it into 8. And now, I don't want to hear myself in the talkback. Like if I go like this, check, 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 you'll see that it's coming out of the mains really quietly right now. Juice it up. Check, check, check. You'll see it's like, I don't want to hear myself. So if you hold Control Command, you can turn off the output of that track, but then copy that 3/4 send into it, and you'll still see the level there. So now we've set up basically 2 mixes. We have 1 and 2, which is what we're hearing, and then 3 and 4, which is what they're hearing. So any element of the track that you need them to hear, you'll need one of these sends on. And you can do it, you don't have to do it on the individual elements. Like if you have a aux with a bunch of effects and stuff, you want them to hear the mix like the way you've made it, so put it on the aux. And now we've basically built their mix. So if they want something, I'll have to go in and adjust these. You know what I mean? Actually, I can get this going on that screen too, I think. But yeah, does that make sense, guys?
Yeah.
So that's basically like the vocal, typical, like just like very simple, bare bones vocal session. There we go, perfect. Okay, so now like let's talk about if we're gonna record like drums or multi-track sort of stuff. I'll open up a session. We did like a Seneca session recently that was pretty simple. Is the OSX, Charlie, are you in here? You want to check if the OSX3 drive is in the back? If it is...
If it's not, it's probably in B.
Oh shit, but it's USB. My computer doesn't have another... Do you have a USB-C to USB adapter?
I have, yep, like USB A and USB-C out.
Did you plug that into the back of my computer and slap the OSX3 in there?
The OSX3 is the small drive, right? The black
Yeah.
one? Yeah.
Yeah. So while he's doing that, let's get a couple of more mics up in there.
Cindy.
Yeah, right.
What's pretty she ran a Pilates before too.
I know, right?
No, I don't think he
10 mics on the drums, a bass thing going up, like a guitar thing going up. Like, I haven't set all that up. I kind of wanted to show you guys like step by step how things are done, but now I'm thinking like it would have been probably good to show you like what a full band record would do, but that's okay. So I'm gonna go to the mic closet. Anybody want to actually go to the mic closet and get me a cable XLR for this guy? We'll just put like a kick mic up. So now we're gonna do a multi-track record with like pretend a bunch of people. So we'll need to like build out headphone mixes for all of them. So we're gonna use this guy here. We're just gonna do the drums right now, but typically, you know, you'd have a drum station, a bass station, a guitar station, a singer station, all that. So you take the output of these guys, which is these big EDAC cables, and you go into these right here, and then screw that in.
Do you want this on a stand?
Yeah, so I'll toss that on the stand there. We really don't need to set up mics, but I'll just like, we're pretending right now. That'll be like our kick in mic. One thing with like wrapping and like setting up cables and stuff that's like really important is like when you have a bunch of mics, how you're doing things so that you don't end up with like just like a nest of cables. Typically what I'll do is I'll put all the mics on this side of the drum kit, like the tom, the kick in, the kick out, the ride, the ride overhead on here, and I'll lay them out on mic stands. And basically before I move them in, or before the drummer comes and loads in his drum kit, I'll keep them here before I actually move them into position. And then when you're like setting up mics, a good thing to, hold on, I don't want to get this tangled. With cables, it's like, sometimes they just like don't want to behave. And I didn't really look at it, but like I find it's helpful to just like look at your cable before you actually run it, because it might be coiled wrong or set up wrong. I think there's a loop in it. But usually it's just good to like look at it and make sure that somebody's wrapped it properly and all that. So
or if it's
basically,
like if it's over under and you start going through the wrong way,
exactly.
then get knots.
So
That's why I always over in the studio. So you unspool. That's how I do it.
You do
Oh, nice.
I do over. So when you plug it into the stage box, you can just unspool it in your hands and it rolls perfectly.
So like an over-under is like this sort of method of wrapping a cable. You twist it as you go in and out so that you end up with this nice coil that if I was to like take one end and run, you wouldn't end up with like a kind of like twisted cable. It's just all laid out perfectly in the cylinder. And so now I have my panel side on this side. You see how I move the cable? I'll plug it into one, and then I'll take the loop, I'll drop it on the floor, I'll wrap it nicely around the mic, and then like that, and then every mic will be set up exactly like that, and then when it's time to actually move them in, I'll start with the closest mic so that that cable isn't in the way of everything else, and move around to the kick, which is what we're going to do now. And I should have grabbed that cable. Sometimes if it gets entangled, you just make the loop again, drop it nicely there. And a good rule of thumb is like all the excess cable, put it with the actual source mic. Don't leave them all there, because then you'll end up with like a giant rat's nest. And then when you're adjusting the mic, I find it's good to just start with like a pretty loose sort of like all the things loose, so you can kind of move it in however you want. And then when you're kind of in position, tighten it up so you're not working against yourself. There you go. Now we have a kick in mic. Okay, so this thing isn't powered up yet, but it will be in a second. I'll show you how we do that. I'd move this to the drummer's sort of here, put like a music stand there, and then let's get him a pair of headphones. Okay. Let's unwrap the headphones, put it on the music stand, put it here for now. and then we're going to go into headphone 1. So the way these things work is they have EQs for each channel, and then they have 8. Well, actually, it's actually 7 because 5 just is there's something wrong with it, so we keep that all the way down. And then before I start, I would just zero everything out. And drums, bass, electric, acoustic, Vox, talkback, and then click. And now we're ready to go in there and power this puppy up. Let's see. Specific. You guys are pouring in, but there's a power box for the headphone amps there, and you actually have to load up a different I/O for that. So I'm actually going to go ahead and find that session that I was working on the other day. We had Seneca in to just do like a student sort of workshop, and they had this whole band set up. So I'm just going to go off that. Because it's recent. All right. Nobody tell these people that I have showed their song. What's that?
On the live.
Yeah. We weren't supposed to say anything. So we're just opening this up. And you'll get this message saying that these paths aren't available. Because right now the setup is for a regular sort of single voice record with no extra headphone outputs. But to get the headphones working, you go into your I/O and you import this, which is the Private Cues Moroccan, which is the name of the room. Keep paths using session. No, we don't need that. Remap. So now at the bottom here, you'll see HP 1 to 8. And we got to do the same for the buses. So private cues, delete unused buses, yes. So I see HP 1 to 8. So as I was saying, because the bus is mapped to an inactive output. Hold on. Oh, you know what? Because I'm in Ableton World, it's not recognizing those because they're on the 4th 192. So to fix that, I'm just going to have to close this. I'm going to quickly turn on the rest of those 192 interfaces. You guys can stay there.
Does anyone have any questions so far?
I do.
One over here.
So for the listen to like the music on the speakers, do you have to route the console in the patch bay, or is it already routed?
1 and 2 is like default to come out of the speakers, as long as this is on Pro Tools 1 and 2. If it wasn't, then you're monitoring the desk, and you'd actually have to go to 1 and 2 and turn those faders up.
Okay.
So now, let's wait for this to open. Questions? Now's a good time. Pro Tools is opening.
I wonder, do you want to screen record what you're doing today?
Nah.
No?
No.
Okay.
I didn't think that far.
Is there not a zoom feature on this on live videos? Instagram Live?
Oh, you could probably squint in.
I tried
can't?
pinching.
That's fine.
Yeah.
It'll probably be better if you like the resolution there sucks. So.
Yeah, it does kind of suck up there.
So opening.
So you have a friend coming in like 5 minutes to relieve me of my duty or what?
I think so.
Okay, cool.
Anybody else want to film? No?
Of course not.
Shane, you're doing great.
My arm is so unbelievably steady. It's crazy.
Okay, so we're going to open up that session again. Do you want to flick the AC down a little bit on there? Just hit the minus a couple times. Go to like 20. Okay, so now you can see these HP sends on everything have become active again. So I'm going to open this up, and you'll see here we have basically everything set up. So yeah, so let's talk through this. So there's a bunch of elements throughout the session that were from the demo. I don't know if you guys remember, I talked about putting the sort of pre-demo things. What's up, Besto?
That's good.
Putting the pre-demo things on the TalkBack channel. So if you look at the TalkBack, it's the same way I set it up as a separate mix here, and that's going out of HP7. And then all the demo stuff is going out of HP7. And then drums on one typically. You can if you're doing strings, obviously you won't have drums. You can do whatever you want. So I have all of the mics on the headphones. Don't really need to give them like the room mic or the far mic or whatever. I typically do just like kick, snare, toms, overhead, hats kind of thing. So that's coming down 1, bass coming down 2, and you see it's pre-fader because they're going to be messing with their levels in there, and I'm going to be mixing in here, so they can worry about their own mix. They have full control, and I can like worry about my mix in here. Electric guitars, we have like a mic on the cab, and then a DI. They don't need to hear the DI. I have my DI muted. I just make sure that it's working, and then kind of don't listen to it for the rest of the session unless I see something's going wrong. Acoustic guitar on 4th. That's like the singers sometimes has like an acoustic guitar, or we might like we had like a overdub with the acoustic, so we'll put up a condenser mic so he can hear himself while he's tracking overdubs. And then this is more pre-recorded stuff. Lead vocal on 6. Click on 8. You can see I have my click all the way down. Again, I'll just check that this is working, and I might have it low while we're tracking to make sure that they're in time. But I'm more concerned about like the performance, not necessarily that they're perfectly on each click. Obviously, I don't want them to fall way off. So if they're not really experienced, I'll be monitoring this loudly. And if I know that they're really tight, I'm not going to worry too much about that because the drummer's dictating that. TalkBack, and then FX sub, like this is the vocal effects and stuff. I'll put that down the same channel as the vocalist. And I might want to hear more reverb. That's why my fader's at 0, and they didn't. So I put it down to 20, and it's on pre-fader. You guys understand what pre-fader, post-fader is doing? Okay. So I'm going to turn the master stuff off because I was bouncing. And so now let's go to okay, so let's go in there and see if we're actually more drums. I can put my drums up, bass up, electric up, that up, pre-recorded elements up, and the click up and down. So if anybody wants to try, see how that works, go for it. Let you guys do that for a second. So this is just the drums, but like you would have this in every station. So there's 5 of them. So you'd have one for the electric guitarist, the vocalist, bassist, the piano player, whatever the configuration of the day is. Yeah. Go ahead, guys. Take a second. I need a breather. I've been talking. Sorry. I'm going to go plan next steps, actually.
Another important thing to note as well, though, about the robots, like any powered piece of equipment, like condensed microphones, specifically like condensed microphones, because these guys have the amplifier over there, you cannot plug them in until that thing is off. Like you need to plug it in first on both ends, plugging this into the wall. Well, actually, that's already just always plugged in, but just plugging this guy in the wall, which are these little digital mounts here. Anyone up, please? But yeah, you have to plug it in first, make sure it's fully fastened, there's a little screw in the middle, and then you can power it up. But, you know, just like condensed microphone, if it's on and you plug it in, you're going to send a lot of power to something that isn't ready for it, and you're going to damage this very old vintage equipment. So, just whenever you're dealing with anything that has power or uses power, make sure it's off before you're making any sort of connections, or else you could seriously damage the microphone or box. And I don't know if Anthony covered this before, but ribbon microphones, phantom power will destroy them. So never, ever, ever plug a ribbon microphone to a channel that has phantom power on, or turn it on.
So you're saying make sure these are off before you plug it in?
Yeah, well, so there isn't a power switch on these boxes. They're all powered by an AC power box that's over there.
Right.
So it's just to the left of the desk on the ground. You can see it when you go back in. But that has to be off before you plug these in.
Okay.
Yeah, super important to know. Because these are all very custom made. I believe Darren bought these from a studio in the UK that had them custom made for that studio. So they don't make these, and they're pretty damn incredible.
Yeah.
They can really change your experience when you're tracking on the floor. And yeah, every single channel has a 2-band EQ, unit panning, or 3-band actually. And unit panning capabilities is awesome. You can do whatever you want. Big spin. It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Give him a sec to just come back in here. What's going on in the chat? Nothing?
No, Jason DeSanti says, still can't believe you guys aren't recording in VR yet.
Sorry, Jason.
Yeah.
I told him soon.
SSL.
Except the patch bay was in the wall.
Where was that? What? Evaluation.
Turn this off through here so we don't.
Fanshawe College
Where's that?
in London.
Was there just like one engineer there?
They had a variety of different people. I don't think there's
Like the person who just works there?
no. They had people who produce like people like Michael
Cool.
Jackson.
Is he?
Yeah. Hold it for a
I
sec.
mean, like the person who works there.
Die!
There wasn't someone that was always there. Like we would get 3-hour slots with the console, so it was,
Oh.
and we would have the console and the recording
Yeah.
for 3 hours. All night. 3 hours slots that day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if we can prop it up to just point to that screen on that.
Mm-hmm.
Right, you know, I don't know if I have to hang it off the monkeys.
So I can probably go like this.
Think so?
Because you learn all this.
From that far away?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just so they can see me explaining shit.
I wasn't that great at
There's the battery. Nice. Good job,
I
Adam.
did engineering.
You want to plug it into your
Practical.
Mm-hmm.
I got that.
charger.
Okay.
But I was
And
my
going
health
to
stuff was
speed
not
this
great.
up.
But regardless, I passed.
That's good.
I passed the program.
Very minimal.
Well, that was number one.
Yeah.
Most important thing is you have your snare sounding good in every single mic, so that's like the best way to test. So when you're setting up like stereo microphones, room microphones, whatever, you always want to make sure that the pair that you're using is perfect, is like equidistant from. I started by doing like directly on the snare, like in the middle, but Spencer, who's one of the engineers here, taught me the trick where you just do it a little bit off to the side, so you're a little bit more centered, but you know you're still getting that pure power because the snare
For
is
the
really,
overheads?
Yeah, well, for measuring phase. Yeah. From
Yeah, because
his
like
phase point
the
is
middle of the
right.
kit is actually on the right side of the snare.
Exactly, yeah. So ever since I started doing that, my drum sound has just been like so much more crisp.
Yeah, I do
But
that too.
typically also when you're doing these like room length things as well, you know, it's a little bit of math, but you're gonna wanna like for your overheads, at least what I was like for overheads comparison to like far room and top room, you wanna try and keep it like double the length. So these are gonna be the same, to the right of the snare, and then your far ones are gonna be double the length of that. So you're just gonna, I always do it with like a string or an XLR cord, just measure and then just fold it over, and then you have your double, and then just go from there. So, but it is really, really important, and again, as I was saying before, checking for phase. Go through all your mics. You know, the first thing to do is make sure the snare's in phase. So you're gonna have your snare top, snare bottom mic. Some people like to do a snare side as well, it gives a little more beef. Make sure those guys are in phase, and then once that's good, compare that to your overheads. Because once you get your snare sounding good in every single microphone, then you're gonna you're really gonna have a nice sounding drum kit. So important steps, but
Snare is everything.
Snare is everything. Snare is
Yeah.
king or queen or you
Yeah.
know, whatever you want it to be. Royalty, baby. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many different ways to mic a drum kit. Like sometimes people are pointing their overheads away from the snare because they don't want too much snare in it. Sometimes people are pointing their overheads kind of straight down, so it kind of gets everything. What I sometimes do with like my ride mic is I won't put it just at the ride. I'll kind of put it off the side of the ride, pointing kind of at the snare. So I have like sort of like a snare side mic as well as a ride mic. With hi-hats, like typically I don't want a lot of everything in the hi-hat because it's like a pretty useless mic sometimes if it's a bunch of shit. So I'll put the ride mic or the hi-hat mic kind of like off the side of the ride instead of like sort of pointed like that. And you might not even need a ride mic sometimes, like, and depends on like overheads. Like sometimes a mono overhead works, mono room works. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention is you need a listen mic. So we'll just usually pick a random mic out of the closet just to experiment, and we'll put this like mic on a stand right in here, and that'll be the mic that I hear. It's like a super compressed mic that I can hear everybody in the band talk back to me with, and I'll just record that as like a far sort of drum mic, and sometimes we squash the shit of it and mix it in. It's like the best thing ever. So yeah, that's pretty much that. Let's go in there and I'll sort of run you guys through like typical compressors I've put on a kit. Okay, so back in the mix.
No, you're good. Yeah, you're alright.
So, I mean, you can go crazy with mics and like outboard gear when you're recording. Sort of the way I was taught is like learn one thing at a time. So like if all you really are comfortable with is like plugging mics into preamps, like start with that. If you have a good room, a good drummer, a good preamp, a good microphone, like you can get so far with just that. Obviously good mic placement too, and then do your mixing in the box. But like if you want to kind of start adding more to your arsenal, like a good thing to start is like putting like a compressor on the kick in or the kick out typically, and then on the snare top. So I'll use those DBX 160s, like really great compressor for like pretty much everything, like vocals too. And I'll kind of just adjust it to taste. Like sometimes I like to have like a really kind of like nice compressed sound. I might be doing 5 dBs. Sometimes I just want it to tickle it a little bit. So you can see kick in and snare top was routed on there. Another thing people like to do is like compress their overheads. So they might use like something like the Allen Smart. That's like a mimic of the SSL bus comp. It's a great thing too. And then you can really go as crazy or as not crazy as you want. You can add compressors on other parts of the band, like a compressor on the bass DI signal, compressor on the vocals. Pianos are typically something I like to record like pretty clean. Maybe like a bit of EQ on the actual preamp. Like the Neves have a great EQ section. You can like utilize that. Adding top end, depending on what mic you're using. Like if you're using Coles on the overheads, for example, like you probably need to add a lot of top end to them because they're so dark. I actually stopped using them as overheads because they're so dark, but it's nice because sometimes your drums can be really harsh if you're recording them with like big condensers. You got the Pultex. You can add that to anything you want. Pultex is like a stereo pair, so that's something you might do later in the mix, like just run just your drums or just your vocals as like the stereo aux through some stuff.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you record everything, you print all the gear that you're using?
So yeah, those would be like
So you don't have to save?
in line. So like the signal is actually going, like we did with the vocals, from the preamp to the compressor. So it's whatever you're recording is it. You know what I mean? And that's why I say if like you're not comfortable with that, like don't think you need to like to get a great drum sound. You need to be using like 4 compressors on the drum kit. Like you can do a lot of that stuff in the box too.
If you're using all the
the hardware gear over multiple sessions, always take photos.
Yeah,
All your
yeah,
settings.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
really cool.
There's a good software for that. I think it's like Recall something, and it has like every piece of gear, and you can actually just draw it into like this and save it as a whole session, so that you can always have your recall there. I kind of just like use a chalk marker and just like mark with like a little pink dot where my things were for one song, or just use a piece of tape with like an arrow on it. Guitar, yeah. So like I guess we should talk about like preamps and stuff like that. So like a Neve pretty much will make everything sound really good. It adds like really nice saturation to everything. It's kind of like it's not super bright. It's kind of like chunky and mid-rangey, and you get like a really nice sound out of it. They're like classics for everything, but like especially vocals or like horn instruments or things like that. The classic API is like great for anything electric guitar or guitar. It's like the APIs to me aren't as colorful as the Neves, but they add like this nice sort of like bump around like the sort of like mid-range, like mid-range, not like super high or super low. And that's kind of where you want your guitar to live. That's like the exciting part of the track. So APIs are great for that. Focusrites are just like these are actually really coveted. They're like from like a huge API, Focusrite desk that got broken up and sold into a bunch of chunks, but they only made like one of them. So these are 4 of those. We typically will use Neves on everything for the drums, vocals, and then pianos. We have 1, 2, and then 8 more of those, so 10 of those. So like you have, what do we have? Kick, in, out, snare, top, bottom, tom, 1, 2, overhead, left and right. And then I might have like my lead vocal, my scratch vocal on the other ones. And then like any extra mics that we need to have a preamp for, like I'll use the Focusrites for, just because they're just like an all-around like super clean, nice sounding preamp. Got the hats on here, the room close, and the listen mic / like room far on these guys. They have like full EQ. You can do everything you need to with them. And then some other typical common practices is like the snare bottom mic, like changing the phase on it and just like sitting sort of like in the room listening to it and just seeing if you go in and out of phase, if it gets punchier or if it gets thinner. There's no like real science to it other than like mic placement and that. And then like if you want to get super granular, you'll get like a phase alignment tool and actually like move the track itself to like make sure that those transients are like hitting at the same time. Something I've kind of like learned is like if you want like a super clean recording, that's good, but if you kind of want to hear things the way the human ear hears, like your ears are out of phase because they're on different sides of your head, and when you listen to a drum mic like in the room, like there's all sorts of phase issues happening naturally. So it's like I feel like phase is actually it's important, but it's not like you can still have a great sounding record if everything is not like hitting the transients perfectly on the phase. If you're making like electronic music or like something else, like you don't want to have that shit because everything's super granular and like specific. But for like a live sounding drum kit, like Charlie was saying, like the 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 rule with like mic placement and stuff, flipping the snare phase or the snare bottom mic phase in and out, and placing everything will get you like pretty much there. What else? Typically I'm like not doing too much EQ on the way in. My philosophy is like if I have the right drum kit, the right mic, like the mic is like EQ in itself, you know, the right preamp, it's like EQ in itself, and the right placement, like that should be your EQ starting point. Like you shouldn't be don't go doing crazy things on the EQ to like make up for the fact that your like mic's not placed right, or you don't have the right mic on it, or you don't have the right drum kit. Like swap out the snare, like change the ride cymbals, like move the drum kit in the room. Like that'll make your record sound way better than you just trying to fix things that are just like already broken. What else? So with the basses, the bass DI, like a classic choice is the Avalon Pre's. So with that, we'll put one of those 2 Avalons. There's 2 more on the live floor. We'll put one out there.